Hi there, this is Patricia Fenty, and today I'm going to show you how you can do wire wrapping with a top drilled bead, where the hole is at the top of the bead. But you can also use this technique with a middle drilled bead, and I'll show you how to do that. Essentially, what you do is create a little bit of a cage in the back here, and then you design your wire wrapping around the front. And I have another design here. This one's on a ribbon necklace. It's the same idea for a middle drilled bead. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's get started. So here are the supplies that you will need to make this project. So of course you're going to want to start with a bead, a top drilled bead. So this here is a top drilled bead. It's a bit of a small one. This is a kazuri bead and it's top drilled. Kazuri beads are made in Kenya. They're handmade in Kenya. And kazuri means small and beautiful. This is another kazuri bead, and this would be a really fun pendant to make using this design with the top drill up there. But you could also use just a regular bead that has a hole drilled through the middle. And so what you do is you bring the wire along the top here, and then you have to create a little secure cage in the back to stop it from spinning. So I'm going to be demonstrating on that. And then you're going to need some wire. So I'm using a dead soft copper wire, a 22 gauge. You could also use a 20 gauge. And then a 28 gauge fine wire for wrapping. You can use any wire you want. You can use craft wire, silver wire, whatever you like. You'll need a soft tape measure, and for sure you'll need cutters and chain nose pliers and round nose pliers. So you can get away with the project with just those 3 pliers, but optionally you can get some flat nose pliers. They're really good for making sharp turns, and then bail making pliers. But if you don't have a bail making plier, you can just use some sort of a round object like a pen or a chopstick. So that's all you need. So let's get started. And I forgot to mention that you're going to need 10 to 15 little seed beads. We're going to be weaving these into our wire weaving. So depending on the size of your pendant, you'll need anywhere between 10 or 15 beads. So you'll need that as well. Now, to figure out how much of the larger wire you're going to need, you want to take your bead and measure the diameter of the span of the hole of that the wire will go through. So this is a 1 1/4 inch, and then how far the wire will wrap around the top of the bead. So on this one, it is 2 1/4 inches. So I need 3 1/2 inches just to get the wire through the bead and around the top. And then you want to figure out how long your weaving piece will be. And this will depend on the size of your stone. So if you have a smaller, narrower stone, you won't need as much wire to wrap around. So this you might need like a 7-inch piece or maybe an 8-inch piece. For this, I'm going to go for a 10-inch length. So then you want to double that. So my wire will be 23 inches. So I'll go ahead and cut that. So I have my 23-inch piece wire. So all you do then is put it through your bead and find the center. And just like that. And you know, you can't really see this very well. I'm going to put a colored background. I'll be right back. There, that's a better background so you can see the wire better. So center your wire in the bead, and then all you're going to do is shape your wire around the top of the bead from both sides and find the center. And with a thicker wire, a heavier gauge wire, you're going to want to use pliers, but this is 22 gauge, so it's really soft. So I can just use my fingers. So I'm just going to hold the center and bend the wire at a 90-degree angle, and then hold the other side and bend that at a 90-degree angle. And then just straighten out your wires. And the top of it may not fit super tight, but that's okay. So once you have that, you're going to take your finer gauge wire and you're going to start wrapping. And see how that spins around like that? Don't worry about that right now. Later on, we're going to bring another piece of wire from the back to secure that from the back, and that'll stop it from spinning around. And your design will be on the front, and so that'll work out. Now, this doesn't have to be super, super tight against here. It can be, but it doesn't have to be, because this is all going to be woven over. So just get your heavier gauge wires centered as best as you can, and then you're going to start the wire weaving. Now, a general rule is with 20 gauge wire, 1 foot of 28 gauge wire will wrap 1 inch of 20 gauge wire. So with the 22 gauge wire, I'm going to figure about 3/4 of a foot or 9 inches to do enough wrapping. So it's just sort of a general gauge. So I'm starting with, I probably could get away with 5 feet, but I'm cutting 6 feet just to make sure I have enough. So just start by securing the 2 wires together at the top with your 28 gauge wire, and it's a little tricky to get it started here, but just do 3 or 4 wraps around both those wires with the 28 gauge wire, and then the wire closest to you, we're going to call that wire A, and the one furthest away from you we'll call wire B. And so once you've got your 3 or 4 wraps joining these 2 wires together, we're going to start wire wrapping on wire A. So just do 10 wraps around wire A, keeping your wraps nice and snug together, and then I'll show you the pattern we're going to do when we get back. So I've done 9 wraps, and I forgot to mention, when you start wrapping, you can just take the tail and just wrap it down around one of the wires, like that would be wire B, I guess. And then you can just trim it off, always trimming your wire to the back of your work. So for this pattern, I've done 9 wraps. So here's my 10th wrap. So there's the 10th wrap. Push that down nice and snug. So for the 11th wrap, you go all the way around both wires, and then do a single wrap around wire B, the wire furthest away from you. It's all kind of awkward at first. Once you get a rhythm going, it works good though. So just 1 wrap around wire B, and then go around wire B again, and then bring your wire, I'm all tangled here, underneath both wires, and then continue to do 10 more wraps around wire A. And it's a really simple pattern. So I'll bring this up closer for you to see, so you can see the pattern. And you can rewind this to see it again. So you want to repeat that 14 times. So 10 wraps around wire A, 11th wrap around both wires, 12th wrap around wire B, and bring that wire under both wires, and then continue to do 10 wraps on the wire A. So do 14 wraps, and I'll see you when we get back. All right. So once you've done 14 pattern repeats, and that's your 14th pattern there, you want to do 10 more wraps on wire A. And then once you've done that, you're going to flip your work over, And I've already done those 10 wraps. And then now wire B is now facing you. It's the back of your work. And we're going to start working on wire B. So then you want to do 10 wraps on wire B, which I'm now going to refer to as wire A, or the wire closest to you. So go ahead and do 10 wraps, and I'll see you when we get back. All right, so now there are 10 wraps on the wire closest to you. Now you're going to bring in your seed beads, and you're going to string a bead onto the wire closest to you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do one wrap around the bead, sort of holding the wire on top of the bead, and then wrapping the wire in front of the bead and over onto your second wire, just like that. And then you're going to repeat and do 10 more wraps on the wire closest to you. So go ahead and do that, and I'll be back. All right, so I have 10 wraps on the wire closest to me, and I'm going to put a bead on that same wire. I'm going to do this again. So you wrap around the bead, holding the wire on top of the bead, and then wrap in front of the bead, and then over top of the back wire, catching the back wire. And make that nice and snug, and then you're going to do 10 wraps on the wire closest to you, or wire A. And so you're going to do that, and just start with 10 beads for now. So do 10 repeats, and I'll see you when we get back for that. All right, so now I've done my 10 beads, and then I did 10 more wraps after the last bead, and I'm just leaving it at this length for now because I may add more beads or I may not, I'm not sure. So at this point, we're going to start creating the bail and making the design on the front. But before we do that, we need to secure the bead from spinning around. So we started working on the front side, and then we turned it over. And so this is the back. So this little wire here that you joined with, you can just bring it to the back and snip it. And then we're going to take maybe a 12-inch piece, 10 or 12-inch piece of your 20 or 22 gauge wire, and you're going to put that through the back of your bead. And this is all working on the back. So we're going to bring this wire around the back, making sure they're even. And you're going to center it on the back of the bead. And if you have the 20 gauge wire, you'll probably want to use the pliers for this. But with the 22 gauge, I can just do it with my fingers. And you want to create a 90-degree bend with these wires in the center of your back. And then you're going to take another 10 or 12-inch piece of your 28 gauge wire, and you're going to just wrap these together and just secure them, secure this back piece with a few wraps. So you want to start by just doing a couple of wraps around the first wire to secure it, and then you're just going to wrap the wire, the 28 gauge wire, around both of these wires to secure it along the back, and you can kind of crimp it together. So just a few wraps, however you like. And So you can just trim off your starting tail there and then just tuck it, that little edge into the back, just crimp it into the back so it doesn't poke you. There we go. And now we're just going to leave these for now. We're going to wrap that around the bail later so you can see how that is secured in the back. So now we're going to work on the bail. You can turn your piece around, and so if you have your bailing pliers, you can use those. Otherwise, just use some sort of a round object. I'm sorry about all this auto-focusing. My camera was doing this and I couldn't see it. But anyways, so you use your bailing tool and then wrap your wire to the front, wrapping it forward. And you sort of want to bend the wire back, so you're giving it a bit of a sort of a backwards bend. And then you want to pinch the front part of the wire in towards the bead. It's a little bit fussy, just like that. And then you can just sort of pinch it in a little bit more there. My bail's a little bit small, so I'm just going to open it up again and bring my bailing tool back in, and I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger. So this wire is nice using the 22 gauge because it's really, really flexible. The 20 gauge is a little bit more rigid and it might not be so agreeable. There, that's better. I like that better. All right. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so now you can take these wires and wrap them around the bail. And yeah, sorry about the autofocus. It's for the rest of the video, it's going to be doing this, so I do apologize. So you can bring this wire around the other way and just secure your bail in place like that. Just sort of straighten them out. And now you can take your woven wire and bring that up and wrap this around the bail again. And so I'm going over top of the one wire on the side there and then underneath the other wire. And this is totally personal. You can do this in any sort of creative way that you want. I have too many winding wires here. I'll be nipping those off soon. But yeah, so just wrap that around. And so you could just do a single wrap like this and then carry on with a design in the front of your bead, or I'm bringing it around to the back one more time. And now I'm going to wrap those side wires around the bail again. And again, you can do this any way you like. You can make it really neat or you can make it abstract. And so just bring that around again. And I might create little spirals with those later. I might not. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to continue to wrap the decorative wire around the bail and make the bail nice and decorative. And yeah, this is totally personal. You can do it any way you like. I'm just sort of winding it around the front here. And then I'm going to run a bit of wire on the side there to secure that piece on this side, like that. And so I have enough beads on there. So now I'm just going to continue to wrap the 28 gauge around this inside wire. I'll probably go about that far, and then I'm going to coil that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to attach this here, and I'll see you when I get back. So I used the 28 gauge wire to attach these two pieces together, and I just strung it through one of the beads there, and then I wrapped this top wire around this side wire here. So now that front piece is nice and secure. And then I continued to wrap about another inch of coiling onto this front wire, and I'm just going to curl this in towards the center, spiral it into the center. And then I'm going to take the outside wire and sort of shape it around that coiled wire, and then back in the other direction, cutting off about 1.5 inches to make a coil in the other direction. So just like that. And just have to fuss with the wires a little bit, and this 22 gauge is really nice for that. There's a lot of flexibility in it. And so just fiddling with that a little bit more. And I think that's looking really nice. And then these top wires, rather than making more coils, I was going to coil them down there. I'm actually just going to tuck them into the back of the work. I think there's enough coiling. So then you can just sort of flatten everything out and, you know, fit it snugly up against the bead, and it's looking, we're done. So see, that holds the back in nicely, and you can see how that looks from the side, and there we go. So I hope you liked this tutorial. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you for joining me.